Now, in a few days, you're going to be inaugurated and you will take office. It's been a pretty bitter, divisive, and in fact contested campaign and result. It did go down to the Supreme Court. And you've now been congratulated for everybody abiding by the Supreme Court decision and because there was no violence. How do you take that, the fact that Kenya has become so known for violence around presidential elections, that this is somewhat of a pleasant surprise?
I think it speaks to the heart of the maturity of the democracy of our country. No citizen, no leader wants their country to be famous for violence. And as the people of Kenya, we have raised the standard, I think, in our continent, and we have raised the standard even for ourselves, that we can go to an election, we can decide who our leaders are, and the next day we can go back to work. That is the standard we have raised for ourselves as the people of Kenya. I am very proud of it, and many, if not all Kenyans are very proud of it. And what happened in the past was a slip. And we have gained our balance, and I am very confident going into the future, the next election will be better than the one we had this year.
So again, it's very good to hear you say that, because the last one, in which you said there were challenges and mishaps, and you called it a slip, what happened in 2007, 2008. More than 1,000 people were killed, so it was a pretty big disaster. But still, your election is very, very narrow, the margin of victory. And you're going to presumably, like all newly elected leaders, want to try to unify the country. Is that possible, and how do you plan to do it?
Well, part of the challenge of leadership is reaching out across the aisle and building alliances and building networks that would help bring the country together. I have already reached out to my competitor, the former Prime Minister. I am very confident that we are going to agree on a mechanism that would allow those of us who will run the executive to do it in a manner that our competitors on the other side, running the opposition and providing oversight, will do their work so that the people of Kenya can reap the benefits.
So let me ask you this, Mr. President-elect. You say that, you've reached out, your opponent, the former Prime Minister, has congratulated you. But your own boss, the outgoing President Kenyatta, to whom you were deputy, supported your opponent. He didn't support you during this campaign. And so far, we don't know whether he's actually congratulated you or not. Has he, President Kenyatta?
When I decided to support President Uhuru Kenyatta for 10 years, I did not give him conditions on him to support me. And he is an adult, and he can choose and make decisions like all adults on who to choose. And I appreciated when he decided to support somebody else. I did not take offense, although I had supported him in the past. I have won the election. That is what is important.
Did he congratulate you? That's what I want to know.
Anybody, whether they supported me or not. Unfortunately, President Kenyatta has not seen it fit to congratulate me, but I think that's fine. I mean, maybe he's a bit disillusioned, or maybe he's unhappy that I defeated his candidate, but that is the nature of politics.
Mr. Ruto, the perennially troubled Somalia, we've already heard that, famine could be knocking at the door there. We know about the terrible food insecurity that's been exacerbated by the war in Ukraine, Russia's invasion, and its refusal up until now to allow grain to be dispersed where it should be. What are your concerns, first and foremost, about Somalia? And then I'm going to ask you about whether you've received any grain shipments.
Somalia is a difficult nut to crack, but we have confidence that the newly elected president in Somalia, who has has worked with us before. We are looking forward to working with him and with the international community so that we can square out the challenges in Somalia, make it possible for Somalia to take care of its own security concerns. And I agree with you, we have a serious challenge of, I think, brought about by climate change. And I was speaking to some of the leaders of northern Kenya this morning, and they have lost pretty 40% of livestock there. So that is an area we are going to work with the international community. We are going to work with the leadership in Somalia so that even as we address the security challenges, we also deal with the humanitarian, especially food situation in the Horn of Africa, in northern Kenya, and generally in our region.
Mr. Ruto, you also face, according to the International Meteorological Association, Kenya faces the worst drought in some 40 years. And we know how terribly climate change is ravaging many, many parts of the world, including Africa. But I also want to ask you to be on the record. You know, the African Union chief, when he came from meeting President Putin and asking him, about this grain insecurity, came out and basically was neutral on it. I mean, he took Putin's line that it was international sanctions that were to blame, that it was everybody's fault except Russia, when we know perfectly well that that's not true, that no international sanctions affect the delivery and the export of grain from either Russia or Ukraine. What is your position on this? Are you clear about why you're having a problem in this regard?
I do not think it helps any situation, finger pointing and blame game. I think we just need to sort out what we have to sort out, and we need to do what we have to do. I would encourage that instead of the finger pointing and blame game as to who is the responsible for what, we should sort out collectively as the international community the conflict in Ukraine, so that whether it is that conflict or it is whatever else that is responsible for the shortage of grain, we put it behind us. I would be part of the leadership that will work with other partners in the international community for the resolution of the conflict in Ukraine, and so that we can get on with doing what we are doing, because climate change is already a big enough problem. I do not think blame game would help in that equation.
I want to talk to you about a specific, human rights situation in parts of Africa and including in your own country. You yourself gained worldwide attention a few years ago when you said there was, quote, no room for homosexuality in Kenyan society. I want to know whether you still stand by that.
We have Kenyan law, we have Kenyan constitution, we have our tradition, we have our customs. We will continue to respect other people's customs as they respect our customs and our tradition. I am very clear that we respect everybody and what they believe in, but we also have what we believe in, and we expect to be respected for what we believe in.
So before I ask you to flesh that out and what exactly does it mean, I want to play you what President Kenyatta said to me about this issue.
I will not engage in a subject that is of it is not of any major importance to the people and the Republic of Kenya. This is not an issue, as you would want to put it, of human rights or this. This is an issue of society, of our own base as a culture, as a people, regardless of which community you come from. This is not acceptable. This is not agreeable.
So he's basically saying homosexuality is not agreeable. You've just said that you're kind of trying to thread the needle, that the law says one thing, but you respect everybody's rights. Will a Ruto administration crack down, like many other leaders in Africa, on the homosexual LGBTQ community? Or will you allow them their human rights and their civil rights?
I think on that subject, President Kenyatta was spot on. We do not want to create a mountain out of a molehill. This is not a big issue for the people of Kenya. When it becomes a big issue for the people of Kenya will make a choice. As it is now, we are grappling with 5 million young people who do not have jobs, 4 million people who are hungry, and that is my concern. That is the focus of the people of Kenya at the moment. When the issue you have discussed about homosexuality and the rights of LGBT will come, the people of Kenya will make a choice, and we will respect the choice of the people of Kenya. For now, Christine Amanpour, let us focus on the real issues that affect people.
As you know, Mr. President, with respect, these are real issues that affect so many people around the world. But we will hold you to what you said, and we'll come back to you if the situation requires it, which
no problem.
Probably it will. But let me ask you this then. You mentioned the cost of living, the pain of the Kenyan people, like so many others around the world. There's so many reasons for it. You yourself come from a pretty hard scrabble, rags to riches background. You called yourself and your road to success like the hustler. What do you mean by that? Give me a little bit of your own background and what you think positions you and places you for this particular job at this particular time.
Like America, it was called the land of possibilities. Kenya, with my candidature and with winning this election, the child of every Kenyan can know that they can live their dreams and actualize their dreams irrespective of whatever background they come from. And we are elevating Kenya to the next level, that ethnicity cannot be a barrier. Your social status cannot be a barrier. The religion you profess cannot be a barrier. That's all my candidature speaks to. And when I ran for this office, there are many people who thought you needed a name recognition, a brand, a big family to come from, a big community to come from. But with my candidature, the child of any Kenyan, small community, big community, irrespective of their social status, can actually journey to success and journey to the pinnacle of any success, because it is possible, and the people of Kenya have made a decision that any Kenyan can be the best they can as long as they work hard and they work at it.
William Ruto, President-elect, thank you so much for joining us from Nairobi.
Thank you very much, Christian, for giving me an opportunity to speak to your audience.
And just an update, since that conversation yesterday, we heard from Ruto that President Kenyatta did have a conversation with him today, but apparently still hasn't offered his congratulations.